Xin chào các bạn đã trở lại với chương trình Khởi nghiệp không ngủ số đặc biệt. Hôm nay chúng ta sẽ đón tiếp một nhân vật rất là đặc biệt, đó chính là anh Shaun Rein, là founder và managing director của công ty CMR. Anh Shaun Rein là thạc sĩ kinh tế của Đại học Harvard và anh vừa phát hành 2 cuốn sách phiên bản tiếng Việt ở Việt Nam có tên là The End of Cheap China và cuốn The End of Copycat China. In an interview on Bloomberg, you talk about developing unicorns. Do you remember that? So, how unicorn startup company changed in China?
It's exciting to talk about what's happening in the tech sector in China. Okay, and as you mentioned, I've talked about unicorns in Bloomberg and this rising innovation. What you're starting to see is that Chinese internet companies are moving away from copycatting successful American internet companies. You know, that's the way it was 15 years ago. You had Baidu, which is a Chinese search engine that they said is the Google of China. They would have Ren, which was the Facebook of China. But they have slowly been eclipsed by these new Chinese entrepreneurs that have created what I consider to be the most innovative technology in the world today. And so you see companies like Alibaba or Tencent that are worth over 100 billion. There are 100 unicorns together, and they're really, I think, 2 or 3 years ahead of Silicon Valley in terms of innovation today.
Yeah, because I know that all people know government is supporting technology company, but in why they scan the user submission, they scan controversial topic or image on internet. So how can China do two opposite things to make a success?
You're already getting difficult questions from the beginning. I think so. There's a lot of censorship in China. Obviously, Facebook. Twitter, these are all American social media sites that are blocked in China. And I think because of the censorship, it's actually helped Chinese companies grow, okay? Because there's been protectionism. Without censorship, probably Google, which is inaccessible in China, would have beaten Baidu. Facebook would have beaten Ren or WeChat. So I think the censorship is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's really helped protect Chinese internet companies to grow. But now what we're starting to see is the censorship is hurting the companies because they're becoming global players. You know, you use WeChat by Tencent, not just in China anymore. You can come to Vietnam, you go to Indonesia. I was in South Africa recently. They use WeChat everywhere. The problem is the censorship is starting to really hurt the ability of these Chinese internet players from becoming truly global. Because they just don't know how to grow. They don't know how to compete against Twitter. They don't know, I think a lot of users are hesitant to use WeChat because they're worried that their data is going to be reviewed by the Chinese government. So for instance, if you are an American, California, using WeChat to communicate with another friend in New York, is that information being viewed by the Chinese government back in Beijing? That's one of the questions. So if I were advising the Chinese government, I would tell them they need to rethink on the internet policies. On the one hand, they do need to worry about social instability. They also need to worry about the American government, which I do believe are spying. But I think that they need to ease up on some of the policies. Otherwise, they're going to hurt Chinese companies from becoming truly global players.
And by the way, you talk about Tencent, about Baidu. They are the big startup, big corp right now. So many unicorns in China. But I realized that with a small unicorn, they will be was bought by Tencent or someone else. So how?
That's the next problem. Okay, I think in the United States, okay, in Silicon Valley, a lot of the greatest companies, eBay, Apple, were tiny, started basically in garages of entrepreneurs, and they were able to grow. In China, most of the innovation is taking place with the big players, what we call BAT, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. They're doing a lot of the innovation, or they acquire early startups from the very beginning. And it's starting to stifle innovation, frankly. Because right now, if you are a startup and you're not close to BAT, you have no chance of growing well. And that's why what you're starting to see in the last 2 years, Didi.cho, which is like an Uber or a Grab for China.
Yeah.
You see Ofo or Mobike, which is a ride-sharing bicycle company, or Ele.me or Meituan, which are food delivery apps. All of these companies have been invested in by Baidu and Alibaba or Tencent. So you're starting to see that these companies are becoming monopolistic, almost predatory. That if you don't sell a stake to them, or if you don't cooperate with them, you have no chance of growing. And I think that's hurting innovation in the country today.
Yeah, you have any advice for founder Vietnamese startup? Because Vietnamese startup and any startup, they have the original idea, authentic idea. So they want to keep it. And when have company buy them or invest to them, they perceive like the passive thinking, not really active thinking. How do you think about that and give advice for them?
Well, I think there's great opportunities for Vietnamese companies to sell completely or large stakes to Chinese companies. Now I know you just said they don't like to do that, but there's a lot of money. I mean, you see Alibaba has been buying up, Lazada Group, e-commerce. People, the Chinese internet players are very interested in Southeast Asia. Okay? They're interested in Indonesia because of the middle class. They like Vietnam because of the younger population. So I actually think, some Vietnamese entrepreneurs could build their companies and either sell the complete company to a Chinese investor for a very high valuation, or they can sell a minority stake. And you can say, especially Tencent tends to be more passive. Tencent will put $100 million in, but they will let you run your own company. Actually, right now, Tencent is the largest foreign investor in Silicon Valley of foreign companies, aside from Samsung. And they've invested in Lyft, they've invested in Snap. So I think there's a really good opportunity to have passive Chinese investment into the Vietnam market.
Yeah, and I also watch your video, and you even Chinese also fear Make in China label. So how can Chinese convince user in the rest of the world about the products, about their business, especially in the internet, like Lazada right now with Alibaba?
That's a good question. I think Chinese are scared to Made in China label. Okay, there's a lot of counterfeit products, a lot of bad quality products, and that's especially true in the food sector. Okay, and that's why you see so many Western food brands, especially from Germany, Australia, Netherlands, countries that Chinese trust, are doing very well selling into the China market. You also see Chinese food companies like Bright Food are making acquisitions of foreign brands, and they're bringing these foreign food brands back into the country. So that's one way to answer. There's good opportunities. Now, when it comes to tech space, it's a little different. Like I said, China right now is 2 or 3 years ahead of Silicon Valley when it comes to innovation. When I bring in friends who are venture capitalists or entrepreneurs from California, and they look at WeChat, and they see just how powerful it is, they're amazed. And that's why you see Facebook and Kik and all these big players in the United States are starting to copycat and copy Tencent and Alibaba. So I don't think you need to worry about the quality control of the Chinese internet space. What the Chinese internet players are going to have to worry about is the government. And will Vietnamese consumers, will American consumers be willing to use internet companies that might share data with the government? That's the big question.
Yeah, and as I know, WeChat was founded in 2010, so just 7 years passed. And in China, WeChat can do many things. And in Vietnam, we already have the platform like that. We can have transaction about water, about fee, tuition fee, or anything, book a doctor. But how can China can do that? Can educate the user to use a product and make payment online and
it's quick. It's a very quick learning process. It's very user friendly. And part of it is, WeChat grew, I think, because of the poorly run state-owned enterprises in China. So, for instance, state-owned enterprises control telecom. So China Telecom, China Mobile have some of the most expensive voice and data plans in the world, some of the slowest access speeds. So consumers, they saw WeChat. They could communicate with friends for free. You know, it was cheaper, more convenient, more robust system. And that's why so many consumers started using WeChat, precisely because they were unhappy with the services offered by government-run institutions. It's the same thing with Alipay and WeChat Pay. The big state-owned banks, ICBC, Bank of China, they dominate and control the financial services sector. And consumers, they couldn't get credit cards. Or if they wanted to go see a bank teller, they'd have to queue up for 2 hours. The service in a Bank of China is just terrible. So when Alipay and WeChat set up a very easy way to make a payment through your mobile phone, people said, this is amazing. I can do it instantly rather than having to wait in line for 2 hours to deal with somebody at Bank of China. So I think in this case, the Chinese internet players were fixing a hole that were created by the government and state-owned enterprises.
Yeah, so government create ecosystem, all things for startup, right?
Yeah, it's a mix. Like they either help or they're so bad that the private Chinese companies try to fill in the gaps that the state-owned enterprises can't help on.
That's my last question for this part. Thanks for coming.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Và chương trình giao lưu của chúng ta đến đây là kết thúc. Xin hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong những chương trình lần sau. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại.